Well, welcome to a very special edition of the Power Test when on the morning after Labour passed the first part of the Power Test in winning it and becoming the government, which is something we've been talking about for a very long time. And presumably we're now allowed to accept it now that it's actually happened, Ayesha. We don't have complacency anymore.
I don't want to rush to any conclusions. Look, I know we won a landslide, but I'm just very conscious about the share of the vote.
What about the next one? What about 20?
Yeah, I'm very concerned about 4 elections time. Like I just don't think we can bank any win right now.
So they have now won, and it was quite an extraordinary night. And we want to sort of run through sort of the big moments and sort of think a bit about what next, I guess, for this new government. But first, I'm not quite sure how you're still functioning because we're recording this on Friday night. You've been going for about 48 hours non-stop. I'm not quite sure what's fueling you anymore, but you've been sort of on every media channel for the last sort of how was the experience of sort of doing a sort of very media heavy election?
It was actually really good fun, and I have been quite lucky for the last few elections that I have been, doing bits of punditry, and I think it ended up being a sort of like Armageddon of punditry. This one, which was fitting because it was a big one to do. So my night was absolutely insane. I started off doing a sort of corporate event. Then I went to Times Radio, which had like a full brass band outside the studio, which was very surreal. Then I went to ITV, and then with George Osborne and Ed Balls and Tom Bradby, and then I went to the BBC, which was actually really good, but very surreal. It was very weird being at the BBC because I was doing BBC Radio 4 with Nick Robinson and Rachel Burden, which was really good. And then I ended up being in the studio with Laura Koonsberg and Clive Myrie when Rishi Sunak made his kind of weird concession speech, like in the middle of the night. And it kind of caught everybody unawares. Everyone was like, what? Laura Koonsberg was like, oh my God, it's over. It's literally over. He's just like basically given up. It's like, oh my God, this is so weird. And we were all like slightly shocked. And then I just started crying. Like it was just really pathetic. I was quite emotional. But not crying in like a nice, pretty way, but like crying with a massive snot bubble. I
was going to say, I was watching the BBC at that point. And it was actually one of my favourite moments of the night was just watching you get so emotional at the exact moment when it happened, when they passed the number, because he made the speech and then they passed the number on the screen, and just to see how just to see all of that kind of frustration of the last 14 years pour out of you on live television. It was a really great moment. I was so many. I'd watched so many sort of Labour shadow ministers be sort of resolutely on message and say all the right things, and then you were just having a good cry.
I'm a menopausal woman. I'm a menopausal, long-suffering Labour supporter. There was a lot of emotions going on. There wasn't an HRT patch large enough to cope with the emotions, Sam.
It was a great moment. There was that and Neil Kinnock having a great chuckle when George Galloway lost were the two sort of highlights for me of the night.
Can I tell you about my other absolute highlight of the night, which was, before we get onto that, this is my complete sort of humble brag, but at one point I had to get on a motorbike called a limo bike, and I had to put on these weird leathers and straddle a quite large man and get whisked across town. I was actually
didn't do that. I didn't straddle any men.
It was like the most exciting thing I've ever done in my life, but it was like so brilliantly scary because we were zipping along like quite fast on this like motorway bit, and then he was like weaving in between like buses and lorries, and I was like, I'm so tired I might fall off and die, but it's quite
fun. If you're going to go.
Exactly, it's quite life affirming in a way. What a way to go! So yeah, that was my really exciting election night.
Right, yeah, great. Well, so I'm like the total opposite. I turned down every party. I turned down every media invitation. I was literally on my computer for the entire night, buried in a spreadsheet. I can't talk to people on election night because I'm too focused on recording everything that's happening.
So you're basically recreating like the John Curtis Nerve Centre, but you're just doing it by yourself.
Yes, literally, I've got like screens everywhere, spreadsheets I'm trying to input stuff into.
I love it. Like the nerd cave.
The nerd cave, yeah. It was Yeah, and I always find they go so fast, like because I'm just so busy focused on trying to process every result. I sort of look up of my screen and suddenly it's 7 o'clock in the morning and everything's happened. But I think like as well as sort of your moment on the BBC, I think probably the highlight was Truss. I
Oh,
did really enjoy that moment. Just there was something so because they didn't show Rees-Mogg on the BBC, so we didn't really get that moment properly. But Trust you got in the sort of full glory of the sort of slow hand clap as she refused to go on stage, and her looking like just that sort of face of sort of frustration as she.
like a sort of confused dog, basically, just like completely sort of
It's just that sort of catharsis of like finally you're actually getting what you deserve for screwing up the country. It was gorgeous.
totally. I completely agree with you. That to me felt like the sort of Portillo moment,
Yeah, totally.
Um,
That was the one bit I'll remember.
and I was in Good Morning Britain. I was sat next to Kwasi Kwarteng, and he's so bad at maths. He thought she'd won, which probably shows how the mini budget went. You can give us a clue into what happened there. But he was like, "No, I think she's won. I think she's won." And it was like Susanna Reeves like, "No, she's not won. She's not won." And then she didn't even have the gumption or the class to do a resignation speech. Like
Yeah.
that would have been the classy thing to do, to say, "Look, thank you to my constituents and all the staff for helping me here for the last 14 years. It's been an honour to serve. I know my time as Prime Minister was short, but, I did my best," something like that,
Yeah.
But the fact that she just got lost on the way out and kind of, it was just so, it was
I
such
did
a
a really
Liz
awkward
Truss.
interview with Ross Atkins. It was like, yeah, the whole thing. And it was a real contrast with Penny Mordaunt, who did exactly that. She gave a classy concession speech. But class has never been her thing. It was so that, and it was sort of the way it sort of finished off the night as well. It was very well timed.
Yeah, in the cold light of day.
In
There
the
was
cold light of day.
a great sense of karma about it. There's a great sense of karma.